When an athlete has an injury, like a broken bone, or a knee or a hand injury, or even a sprained ankle, they often seek help to treat their injury. And it is talked about as another part of being an athlete. However, it is a lot different when you can't see the injury and someone doesn't know what is going on. Success, athletic ability, and talent are not immune to mental illness. Mental illness does not discriminate whether you are male or female, or an athlete or not. In fact, several athletes, even the ones that are perceived as having it all, being a god, or the greatest of all time, can and do suffer from mental illness. While decorated U.S. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps, NBA player Kevin Love, and New York Giants wide receiver Brandon Marshall all have experienced and shared their stories about their struggles with mental health. Each story and the way mental health affects them is unique. But something each of these athletes can agree upon is the negative stigma surrounding mental health in sports and a dire need to change this negative culture in society. Now, these athletes are using their platforms to create awareness in hopes to destigmatize mental health. On November 5th, after halftime against the Atlanta Hawks, Kevin Love experienced a panic attack. The center and power forward for the Cleveland Cavaliers said the panic attack came out of nowhere and he had not experienced anything like it before. The problem, he said, was that he could not tell if it was real or not, like he could tell if his hand was broken or a sprained ankle. But since that day, he said that everything changed in the way he thought about mental health. Kevin Love had never shared his struggles because growing up, he was taught to be a man. He described it as a playbook. Be strong. Don't talk about your feelings. Get through it on your own, he said. For his entire life, he followed this playbook. He thought that opening up was a sign of weakness that could derail his success in sports or make him seem as weird or different. And after halftime in the game against the Hawks on November 5th, all of these perceptions changed for Kevin Love. While Love quickly got the help he needed, he found himself afraid to tell people. Why, he thought. Surprisingly, he wasn't worried about just his own inner struggles, but how difficult it was to talk about them. He said he didn't want people to perceive him as somehow less reliable as a teammate or change the way his fans viewed him as an athlete. For him, it all went back to the playbook he lived by growing up. He said in the NBA, nobody talked about what they were struggling with on the inside. Because no pro athlete had never talked about mental health, he didn't want to be the only one. And again, because he didn't want to look weak. But Love realized that therein lied the problem. Because no one was talking about mental health, there was this belief that if you struggled with mental illness, then you were weak. But, he states, that talking about mental health and opening up can help take some of the power away from that stigma. He said the thing is, because we can't see it, we don't know who's going through what, and we don't know when, and we don't know why. Mental health is an invisible thing, but it touches all of us at some point or another. It's part of life. You never know what that person is going through. Mental health isn't just an athlete thing. What you do for a living doesn't have to define who you are. This is an everyone thing. No matter what our circumstances, we're all carrying around things that hurt, and they can hurt us if we keep them buried inside. Not talking about our inner lives robs us of really getting to know ourselves, he said, and it robs us of the chance to reach out to others in need. New York Giants wide receiver Brandon Marshall could not agree more. Marshall said that when he first heard the terms mental health, the first thing that came to his mind was mental toughness, masking the pain, hiding it, keeping it inside. He said that had been the perception he had since he was a little kid. Never show weakness. Suck it up. Play through it. But now Marshall realizes that mental health means the opposite. In 2011, the New York Giants wide receiver was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. BPD is an emotional disorder that affects a person's ability to cope with and control their emotions. After identifying his struggles and his issues with depression, and various loved ones encouraging him to get help, he took the next steps, and that was to get treatment. As Marshall sat in a therapy session, he realized the insurance broker, the social worker, the college students, everyday normal people were facing the very struggles he was facing. He was in shock. Hundreds of thousands of people were all facing similar issues and suffering in silence. It was that day that Brandon Marshall decided he couldn't remain silent anymore. Marshall said he realized that it was his purpose to help bridge the gap in the mental health community, and football was his platform to accomplish it. 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental illness every year. That's around 65 million people. And counting the friends and family that are indirectly affected counts for more than 100 million affected by mental illness every year. Of those experiencing mental illness, roughly 50% don't seek treatment, and 30% of those suffering will choose not to seek help because they are concerned with the negative perceptions of others. Again, Marshall said that football has become his platform, not his purpose. His purpose, he said, is to serve as an example for people who are suffering from mental illness, to show them that athletes are human, and just because they are famous or have success does not mean that they cannot go through the same struggles. Marshall said, like you, he and dozens of other athletes can experience mental health and that it is okay to seek help. He said that is why he shares his story every chance he gets, to give people and other athletes the courage to seek help, to raise awareness, and to break the stigma. He said people need to accept that mental illness is a disease, and like any other disease or injury, the research and treatment is key to fighting it. The world needs more robust education about mental health in schools. And most of all, he said, we need to break the stigma. Like Brandon Marshall, Michael Phelps also said that treatment helped him. Phelps also had found a new purpose outside of the swimming pool, raising awareness to fight the negative stigma about mental health. The decorated U.S. Olympic swimmer said he only saw himself as a swimmer and nothing else, and that is how a lot of people viewed him. But at the age of 30, Phelps decided to show the world not Michael Phelps, the swimmer, but who he really was. Phelps said it's good for athletes to be open about who they are and for people to understand that they are far from perfect. He said he is human just like everyone else. After sharing his struggles with depression and suicide, Phelps found that he could help make a difference for those who are dealing with similar issues. Once he opened up about his struggles and the things that he kept inside for so many years, he found his life to be a lot easier. He credits his decision to get help helped save his life. His story is just proof that getting support is a sign of courage, not weakness. He said he learned to understand that it is okay not to be okay. Phelps said that it is so important to talk about mental health, especially in sports, because when other athletes open up and talk about their issues, it helps destigmatize and normalize those issues, and it shows that all individuals struggle. The message here is clear. There is a dire need to change the culture surrounding mental health in sports and in society. Struggling with mental health is not a weakness, and getting help is a symbol of courage and hope that could save your life just like it saved your macho athletes' lives.